if you're going in on trial on second, don't maneuver your first flute. Don't lead. So how do you not lead? You just breathe with them and you feel the size of the movement. A difficult one, because you get some first flutes that like to sit back, and I find that quite hard because I prefer to be slightly behind them.
Yes. It's the most humongous pleasure for me to welcome Sarah Newbold to have a chat about what it is to be a second flute. What you might not know about Sarah is that she's much, much more than a second flute. To start with, she's a tennis coach, but also she is one of the only amazing multitaskers I know of who plays as readily principal flute, second flute, and principal piccolo. There's not many people you can say that of that play at the extraordinary standard that Sarah does. But before she starts blushing, I wanted to ask you just to get lots of info about your life, in that realm of your life that is playing the second flute. We're old colleagues, aren't we, from Academy St. Martin's in the Fields. But years and years ago, I can remember we talked that one day we had a dream that we'd be in the same orchestra together. And we used to have like a fantasy orchestra.
Yeah, it was.
that we sort of made up. That was our orchestra that we were going to belong to. And here we are. We did it. We made it. And it's been such a joy. And anyway, so this job of being a second flute player, I mean, what would you say really drew you into that in the first place?
I think to be a good second flute, you've just got to have a real curiosity about how sound is made, how people perceive music, and you've got to really enjoy working with them. You've got to enjoy the different ways that people play the flute, the different ways that people perceive music. I mean, basically, you have to be completely adaptable. The way the first flute wants to play is the way the second flute has to play. So you have to forget your ego in terms of what you think that you want to do, and you just have to let it happen. And that can be, it's incredibly rewarding, actually. You learn. I think I've learned from all my life. I've learned stuff. I've learned from every time I play with anybody. You learn. Whatever they're doing, you're thinking, oh, how do they make that sound? Or why do they make that sound in that way? So you think about it and you think, and you just file it. If you like it or you don't like it, you file it. Yeah. And it's everything. I think everybody I've ever played with, I've learned something from. Absolutely. And I think that has informed my, I suppose, starting quite late as a student. I mean, I suppose not having gone to, special schools, all this stuff early on, I didn't really know anything. And I think my education really started by playing second flute and playing a lot of it. My whole musical self developed in lots of different ways. And so I think gradually I became more confident in doing more first flute later on. I think at when I was young, it would have been an impossibility. It wasn't. I did it, but I didn't know what on earth I was doing. So my knowledge has basically come from working with wonderful flute players, lots of different flute players. Of course, yourself. And,
but I don't know about you, because for me, I remember that at music college, we have fantastic teachers, very lucky. But I felt almost like 50% of it was that time when you then went out and started playing second or down the line to people. And it almost seemed as much of a learning curve and as much like that's where the osmosis state happens. That when you're actually in situation within ensembles and then you kind of like draw out how people are going about it. Yeah, it seems like a huge thing in development.
Yeah, I think
a real opportunity.
It is a huge opportunity. That's So I thank every single first flute I've ever played with. Thank you for letting me learn from you. There's only been I think there've been two along the way that didn't want me to learn from them.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, like,
Well,
you
just
felt they were guarded about.
yeah, very, very uncommunicative in the instinctive thing they wouldn't give.
Okay.
And so it was quite interesting playing second to that, because you have to do it in a very academic way.
Yeah.
And but yeah.
Would you say as a personality that
Huntington,
you're generally fascinated by what makes people tick?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, if you've got that kind of mindset, that really helps.
Yeah,
your
I think you have to play second.
So the idea is it a danger for people preparing second parts that they're going to do their honourable practice, but they're getting into difficulties because they've really decided how it's going to go?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
totally. You have to. I mean, of course, that makes it difficult for an audition.
Yes.
Because that comes into another whole world of, you can't second guess how someone's going to do it, and nor should you second guess how they're going to do that.
Yeah.
But that's a whole subject. But just in terms of, your willingness to adapt and change, I think
so
it was interesting.
Well,
it was interesting.
How would you advise people to prepare?
Yeah, well, I was thinking about even doing this
Yes,
thing. I was
okay.
thinking that's an interesting one, because I thought to myself, well, you sort of said to me, what pieces would you like to play? And I thought, well, I'd like to, these would be nice too. And you said, because I need to prepare them. And I thought to myself, now that's very interesting, because how am I going to prepare them? Because how I'm going to prepare them is literally learn the notes, learn the context of the piece, know what I'm doing. But when it actually comes to playing alongside with someone, you have to let all that go and trust what they're doing, listen to their air, listen to their whole feeling, their body movement, all those things that we do, that we pick up on. So preparation is an interesting one.
Yes. Just enough, but not
just
too much.
enough, and not But of course,
but also it's the flexibility to
change it if you've done it somewhere else. Because sounds are completely different. Use of vibrato, use of general approach, and it's quite interesting to do something you don't like. It's also very interesting to do something you don't particularly like. I mean, not that anybody I've ever played second to has been something I really hated. But there have been moments when it's not been my personal game. Well, it's been quite a lot, you know. So you have to just shimmy around that.
And you were mentioned about ego and stuff, about that goes out the window kind of thing. I think it's quite hard sometimes for younger players, particularly, because they're trying to make that mark. They're trying to present themselves confidence.
Sure, but it's confidence. It's not exactly. I wouldn't say ego goes out the window, because sometimes it can be quite frustrating. I think as a second, sometimes you don't want people appreciating you all the time, but on the other hand, you're appreciated for just doing it well, if you like. So that can be very difficult when a youngster is trying to make a mark. But all I would say is just play as well as you can and forget the rest. Make sure you get the teas, but apart from that, take your turn. Don't just go and make the teas. But
one thing I was wondering about is the whole thing, because you do hear about second players who play like competitively.
Oh yeah, no, you can't. You absolutely can't do that.
And I think that's a problem, because some people I think just feel that the feeling to do a good job they've got to like do their best, but it's more like, do you think it's like more like a art and a craft, that it's about being reactive in the moment and creative in the moment, but actually just there's something about the building blocks of it, of putting it all together and being able to be that amazing as a player that you can just change your playing. In an instant.
You have to know. You need to absolutely know the music, know the notes. That's the first thing. I mean, never come in not knowing the notes, and then just feel what the person's doing, and I think sometimes you might not get it right the first time. I think one of the most irritating things as a second is if the first player says to you after the first playing of something, that say, "Can you do that?" Because it's really bloody annoying.
Yes. Because give me another chance.
Because actually I heard it.
And next time
I might have been thinking about something else at that moment, but I heard it. And I won't do that again. I get what you're getting, but it sometimes takes a little while to settle down.
I get that same thing with conductors sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've gone like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And then you're pounced on.
Yeah.
And you go like, oh, give me a chance to just do it one more time, then you'll hear it.
I've got it. I've got it. Thanks.
Yeah.
So I think as a second, I think I feel pretty fed up if someone needs to tell me something after a couple of goes. I think I failed.
And it doesn't vary a lot about how much people say as principal players. Is it fairly standardised, or just odd little things?
Little things.
Is there ever an instance where there's somebody who's like a little bit over vocal, or not really?
I try not to give them the chance. To be fair, I take that as being one of the skills of being a second is to find a way of not being pounced on. Yes. Basically, and not being asked to do stuff. Well, so you've just got to get it right. You've got to get it
exactly.
right.
That's testament to the job you do. Yeah.
So that's quite fun. Yeah. I mean, in a way.
And I'm interested to pick up on what you're saying about body language, because because I just think generally it's absolutely incredible, the kind of like sixth sense. I have no idea how that works. I do think maybe one's using those skills on the principal chair with other people around as well.
You're doing it with the principal wins
all
the time.
Yeah.
And a bigger
orchestra. I mean, it does feel like that sometimes, because sometimes someone's behind you and you feel exactly what they're about to do. Yeah. And you go like, how can I know that they're behind me? Yeah. But somehow there's something in the air that tells you that.
Well,
But what would you say are the cues that you're picking up from?
Breath.
Is that breathing in, or
it's breathing in and breath out? So the way the air is flowing, the breathing in, certainly the speed of the breath in will define the attack.
Yes,
you can feel it from the quality of the breath in. You can feel a long note, progression, the crescendo of a long note, or just the movement or the stillness of a long note, depending on how the breath is moving, and you can feel that at any dynamic. Yeah. So it's like doing Moy's that Moy's crescendo in one note. Yeah. That's a god of an exercise, to be honest. Yeah. Especially for a second, it's really, really, really interesting, that one, or diminuendoing like that, and body language wise, never outmove your first. Yeah. Although I have to say that. That's been a bit different. Now we're playing without conductor.
Yes.
That feeling has changed a bit for me.
You'll have to try pretty hard to outdo me on that. I don't
know. But no, I've realised I'm moving much more than I was. Yes. And it's partly to do with having a very physical...
I mean, maybe we should say that at the Academy St. Martin's, we were directed from the violin by Joshua Bell.
Yeah.
And which is phenomenal. And talking of moving a lot, he's amazing to watch, isn't he?
He's very physical. I think
that encourages that in us all. As well
I think it does too. Yeah. It's an interesting one, because I definitely play second differently when I'm working with him.
Yes.
I definitely do. So the movement is, I mean, if you're going in on trial on second, don't maneuver your first flute. Don't lead. So how do you not lead? You just breathe with them, and you feel the size of the movement that they're doing. Yeah. And you just feel that movement. If you have something that needs to be brought out, you can let your movement move a little bit, but it's subtle. And I wouldn't say any of these things are set in stone. You've also got to feel feel what sort of principle you've got. Have you got a confident principle? Have you got a principle that needs? Well, you can basically make or break them.
No,
you can.
That's certainly your part,
so if you've got someone that's feeling not confident, you just want to keep quiet and still, and just know how hard their job is. And if they're having a bad day, that job is really hard. And I think that sometimes young players don't realise quite how difficult it can be to be a principal flute, or a principal anything. I think you've got people coming in, they've got home lives, something might be happening, the kids might be messing about, there might be all sorts of stuff that is periphery to the job, in a sense.
Oh, absolutely.
But when they come in and they have to play, they have to produce something godlike, and they may be exhausted, they may not have slept all night, and as a second, I think your job is to make their life easy, and that means knowing what you're doing and picking up if they're feeling sensitive or more vulnerable than they might normally be, and just shutting up, basically. I mean, my very first job was with someone that said to me, Sarah, could you just not speak to me in the pit? And it was a second flute job, second and pick. And
in opera.
Yeah. And he said to me, could you just not speak to me? And I said, oh.
Was this in a rehearsal? Or
no, just any time.
Anytime.
Just don't speak to me when I'm in the pit. And I said, oh, okay. And I realised that it was a lesson for me, because I realised I was really upset, actually. I thought, well, I'm just enjoying the music and I'm being all cheerful and going, my God, this is so great. Because for me, it was so great. It was really exciting. I couldn't believe I'd actually got a job. And then to be told to not be yourself and not talk was quite difficult. But I realised that he was really struggling. And I was just too young and keen and enthusiastic. Yeah. So actually what I needed to do...
He wanted a quieter presence.
He wanted a quieter presence. So I just had to go, okay, this enthusiasm needs to be buttoned up.
I have to say, from my own experience, Sarah is so enthusiastic. It's absolutely brilliant.
Well, yeah, no, it clearly is and it isn't. It's just knowing when to use it, I think. Yeah. So yeah, I did have to learn. I learned young that actually sometimes people are not feeling like sharing your enthusiasm. Therefore, you've just got to be quiet and accept that. Again, it comes about the ego. It's about who, actually, at that moment, who's got the harder job. And I think that person has the harder job because they're not feeling like it, and it's tough. Yeah. And that means that you just pick that up and you support it and you get on with it.
Yeah. And in terms of sitting, have you got any advice about how you sit as a second player?
Oh, that's very interesting. Well, it depends on how. I think it's a difficult one, because you get some first flutes that like to sit back, and I find that quite hard because I prefer to be slightly behind them.
Yes.
But of course, when you're slanted one way, slightly turned to the side anyway, which we have to be. I would like to be, so I can feel them in my periphery vision very clearly. But some players like to sit back in the seat, and that's very, very hard to get behind them.
Yes. Okay.
So you sort of fiddle around, moving your chair back as far as you dare. But again, the same thing. I would never say to someone, "Can you sit forward?"
Okay.
Because they're comfortable, and if they're comfortable, I mean, it sounds like a flipping angel, doesn't it? But actually, in a way, that seems a very daft thing to say. But in a way, it is important. They need to be comfortable, and then I'm thinking to myself, well, why don't I need to be comfortable? Because sometimes, really, a lot of the time, I have not been comfortable.
No, yeah.
But
and it's hard.
And it's even, of course, worse for the piccolo down the end as well.
Yeah.
I mean, although generally they could, But I prefer to be slightly behind, so I can pick up, I can feel the flute, I can see it with my periphery vision, and I feel more in contact. If they're behind, I can do it still. It's to do with the space and the air moving. That sounds a bit bonkers, but it is. It's like you were saying with the people behind. So. You feel. I don't even know if we're feeling heat, what we're feeling, but we're feeling something that we.
And I think it comes down to sensitivity in a way, doesn't it? I think one needs to stay very open and very, very sensitive.
Yeah.
When you're working, sometimes it's hard because you've got a lot of difficult things to dispatch.
Yeah. Well, you do, and yourself you do too, and and absolutely, it can be hard. But I think, I mean, basically, the job is get the section to sound as good as it can. Yeah. And that means somebody making a decision, somebody else going with that, and communicating that to the third player or the rest of the section too. Yeah. So
I guess in real life, I often think that we spend our lives actually picking up on people's, depends how sensitive you are, but on people's mood and body language, and you perceive all sorts of things like, did they really mean that, or were they that enthusiastic about that, or were they, I mean, you're sort of taking minutiae of what's communicated. Yeah. And I'm sure in a sort of musical way, that's a lot about what second flute's probably
Yes, totally.
about.
Totally.
Picking up signals.
Yeah, you pick them up all the time, and
But
you pass
amazing
them on.
to be able to transfer that into sound. You know what I mean? To hear that stuff, and then you kind of like go like, okay, that means I do this.
Yeah, I suppose it is weird, really. I've never really thought about it. You just sort of do it. I mean, but it's like, and it's even more interesting playing, doing this thing that we do in the academy with big distance and a very physical leader.
Yes.
Because it feels like you are being led from the front.
Yes.
As much as you're doing this operation here.
Yeah.
So it's like, I always talk about masses of elastic bands coming through all the players that make this thing, this amazing thing happen.
And actually, on the point of leading, I'd be really interested to say, what kind of leading from a first flute when you're a second flute is helpful and what's not?
It can be anything. It's a case of getting used to the person, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
how they go about it.
One player I played with a lot in the past moves about a quarter of an inch.
Yeah.
But you get used to it. You pick it up. Yeah. You feel what they're about to do. And then other people give completely irrelevant gestures, and you think,
it's like the page turner, the pianist when you're page turning, who goes like, I'll just nod, and they're nodding away all the time. You go like, which one am I supposed to follow?
Which nod is it? Yeah. Well, there's sometimes when people do a great big gesture, and you know that the sound, the gesture is inappropriate for the sound somehow.
Yes. Okay.
So you
get a soft chord or something.
Yeah, and you get a whacking great gesture, and you think, well, I'm not really sure where that note goes, but you learn where it goes. So it goes whacking great gesture.
Sound beautiful little note.
So it's and then you begin to pick up that is the way that they're feeling it. So it's another whole language of moving, body moving, basically, which is intriguing. So I wouldn't say anything is, again, it's what's appropriate for that person. I mean, irritating is when somebody does something a bit different and doesn't trust you. That is irritating. Yes. When they get to the show and they suddenly decide, I better lead this. And then you're like, actually, just do what you do. And leave us alone, because
that's what rehearsals were for.
That's our job. Yeah. We understand that. Yeah. But it is. I mean, it's like chamber music in a way. I mean, it's playing chamber music. Yeah. It's just you hand it over, basically.
Because I mean, I just think in terms of where credit's due, second flute absolutely amazed me about the sixth sense thing, because me on principle, I'm feeling very reactive, and this is my moment, and this is what I'm going to do. But that's already kind of split secondy enough. But then I just think it's amazing that second flute just not only second guess that, but then also change their playing, because I just come out with the playing I want to come out with.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how we pick that up.
No,
but I'm really not quite sure how we pick that up, actually.
And I think it's fairly miraculous, the split secondness of it.
Yeah.
That's something.
It's a trust, though. It's a trust that if someone's going to do something and take a risk and go somewhere, that you just be in the moment and just go with it. And what it also trusts, that if you do it wrong, it's like what Josh has said to us before. It's okay. All I want for you is to give of your music, and if you go for it, I'm happy. Yeah. And actually, if something doesn't work, it doesn't work.
No.
But basically, and that's true. I think that's it.
It's live music making.
If you make live music, you have to go. Sometimes it will be right. Hopefully most of the time it's right, and then sometimes something will be a bit. And
I suppose language is music is a language as well. So we sort of get the implication about where things are going.
Well, the best fun for me is to play with someone that's going to be spontaneous and not plan it.
Yeah.
I do get a bit bored. I get bored if someone decides that, if it's going to be this way. Okay.
So you want a bit of an obstacle course, basically. You want to have that fun of
that makes it
sniffing it out.
That makes it fun for me. Yeah, definitely. Providing the person is happy that most of it will work and the odd thing might not.
Is there ever a feeling that there could be a threat that you feel that you lose your own voice? Or is there a tension in that? Or...
Not really. I think the thing to do is to make sure you do things for yourself. When you feel in danger of doing that, I mean, I do quite a lot of chamber music that I absolutely love. And that gives me a sense of my own voice. Yes. And I think you do need to have that, just to remind yourself of who you are. And then you can go away and be the chameleon again.
And I was slightly intrigued because
Yeah.
when we're on tour and things, I might be tootling away, but you always go take yourself off a little bit, bit of distance. Is that to do with also hearing yourself and then bringing it back to that space?
Well, sometimes it's to do with the fact that you're razzing through something contemporary, and I'm trying to do long notes.
It's too loud.
So I do it. And also, you like to warm up in a very energetic, centre stage way.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what you like to do.
Yeah.
I prefer to warm up generally in the other room, like I just just did in your kitchen. I went into the other room, even though I couldn't quite bring myself to stand. So I'm not quite sure what that's about. Maybe, and in fact, even when I'm playing first flute, I tend to do that.
Oh, okay. So
I tend to make
we just have a different the thing of
rev up,
that, your own
maybe
different rev up. Yeah,
because the rev up it is a rev up, really. Right. I think when you're about to perform, you
it's really
you see lots of
gearing up.
You see lots of people playing with loads of energy, and other people who just like a bit of quiet. And I think I like a bit of quiet, really, myself. Just to basically.
Yeah, I'm always slightly intrigued because when I was doing first out and doing quite a lot of second work, I was kind of a bit freaked out by the fact that it was always, you felt as a second player, it was always your fault. Because somehow it was your job if the intonation was this or that, or there wasn't.
But you feel like,
do you just get used to that?
I think you feel, you're the one that has to, you generally, well, actually.
Did it ever play in your mind? Does it ever trouble you, that aspect of it?
No, because I think it's, roughly whether it's going to be.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, you have to go, saying roughly is not right. You pick up the intonation from what is around you. So the thing with intonation is you have to be in the moment. You have to be flexible with that. Yeah. So you can't ever go, I'm right, or that's right, or this is not right, or it's like, okay, it wasn't right.
Yes. How do we
Therefore,
make this work?
How do we make it work? And it might be, from something on the other side of the orchestra.
Oh, absolutely.
The best person I remember for dealing with that was Charles McCarris, who used to stop and say, right, I don't know who it is or what it is, but the E's are wrong. People with the E's are double basses, fourth horn, second flute.
Right.
And that would be
enough.
Okay, that's enough. You go, all right, I need to listen to that then.
Yeah. And we all have a bugbear thing in the orchestral world, I think, of when they build up the chords. Oh. And they start from somebody who you think might be a little bit the problem, and you go like, no, we can't build it up from that, And it's like, this is bound not to work. But anyway,
but it's also the fact that intonation generally is flexible. So it might be a tone color. It might be mostly it's tone color. Yeah. So no, I think it's a very interesting language. That
one thing I'd be interested to ask you about is obviously first flutes are written higher generally, and you're working to match sounds lower in your range.
Sure.
And I've often wondered how you sort of deal with that, because the top of the flute is a very particular thing and also it changes so dramatically from when we're low. It's one of the loudest instruments when we're high, and when we're low, it's one of the, it's a pretty soft instrument. And also you haven't got altitude to help you because you don't stick out with the texture anymore. There's a lot of other people playing in a similar
that's
texture.
What makes it exciting.
Yeah.
Because you have to adjust. You have to play around with things opposites. Yeah. So you might be centering, say it's an E octave, you might be centering the E more than you might do, or putting, at the bottom, or you're playing louder, or you might putting a bloom on the sound if the sound is a bit thin at the top. Or you play around with those things until you find the right one.
Yeah.
Until you find the colour that works, basically.
For the blend.
For the blend. And that's the it's like having an artist palette of colours and just dibbling a bit of this and a bit of that till you find where it works.
But isn't it amazing? Because essentially you've got two artists working at the same time, but you've got more of the responsibility for making it work.
But you've got a different responsibility though. You have to make it work with the other players around you, the different instruments. So you have equally have to do colour matching. Yeah. It's we get our swatch colours from but yeah, it's fascinating, that to me. I like that very much.
And do you ever think that you end up using sounds that you just would never really think of using if you were playing your solo piece or
no, I literally go, okay, that's interesting, file it.
File it. And then
file it is my word. You know,
Yeah,
is like, okay, it's like looking at, it's like playing through a whole exercise book of different fingerings for notes, for instance, that various composers have written.
Yes.
You know, I always say to my students, go away, do that, play through the different sounds, listen to the different sounds that the flute itself can make, let alone what's happening with your body.
Yes.
And then you've also got then everything that works in your resonance and your face and your air pressure and all these things.
Yeah.
You've got this endless combination. I think the exciting thing is to have your imagination sparked.
Yes.
And for me, that's what's given me the most excitement doing it.
Yeah.
It's really great.
Yeah. And what about the business about, because you do play principal a lot and you play piccolo a lot as well, and that it doesn't mess with your head. You just go like, do you have a dial? What? How do you do this?
I think I have a dial now, yeah. I think I understand the two jobs better now, so I can do it quicker. I can change between them quicker than I could.
Yes. Okay.
But there definitely is a different mindset in a way. You know, when you're going out to play first, you're making the decisions first, so you actually have to do that homework a bit more and think about that, even though you've got people around you that you're going to pick up music from. Yeah. But there's something about decision making that happens differently. Basically, very in some ways I'm not going to say it's easier. I don't think it is easier, but there are certain elements to that you just go, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's you know, you don't have to compromise in that
you're
way.
You're being polite, but I really do think it's easier playing principal than.
I honestly think it has its own. It has its own troubles.
Maybe it's just a different thing.
Yeah, it's a different thing. You've got
each with its challenges.
Each with its challenges, and each with its fascinations as well.
And what about evaluating how you sit in textures? Because I'm always intrigued by, not only do you have to be so flexible to what's going on around you in the secondary, but sometimes you end up with solo lines and you've got to make up like, am I working in part of a moving, like a texture that's flowing along, with everybody else. But then occasionally, I mean, I know like playing in Beethoven symphonies, you occasionally get those little moments where actually the real interest is in the second flute part. Yeah. And I even write on my parts always like, second flute solo. Whenever there's like divergence, I'm just holding a long note, but you've got the harmonic interest or whatever. Yeah. Is that? I wondered how you do that, or in even something like Dvorak 9 where there's massive solos.
Well, Dvorak 9's interesting because Dvorak 9, you know, the first flute has this lovely key of G to play in, and the second flute has this delightful key of A flat to play in, and so that's an interesting one because the whole colour of the flute is more challenging on the flatter key, I think. Yeah. So that sonority can be interesting, and you've got to. I don't know. I guess that there is a moment in that piece when you think. Or, for instance, Mother Goose, when you start doing the opening of Mother Goose for the second flute is marked pianissimo. And when the first flute, and it's in the low register, and the first flute comes in, and it's in a higher register, gloriously singing, and really, really easy. And it's flipping hard in the second flute to get a quality. What sort of quality do you play that as?
I know, because my students have prepared those for auditions, and I've played the second flute quite long. And actually, I'm so glad I'm the first part on that one.
It's just interesting, and sometimes the second flute has the more difficult version of that tune. Yes. So I suppose you make a what's the expression? You decide you're going to make a success out of that quality.
Like a positive virtue.
A positive virtue out of it.
But otherwise, would you feel that you're evaluating how you sit in the musical texture, like how soloistic it is, whether all the time, or is it something quite instinctual, or are you actually thinking about that quite a lot?
Yeah, I think you're listening all the time. Yeah, I mean it's like chamber music. You're listening all the time.
So during rehearsal periods, you'll be clocking how it all fits together. And when you all can step forwards a bit.
When all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think, I mean, that's the job.
It's very multi-layered, isn't it?
Yeah, hugely multi. You know, you're not one person. We're not two people.
Yeah.
You know, we're within this big context. So those things are going out. Yeah, the old elastic bands are everywhere.
Yeah. Plenty to think about.
Plenty to think about. But that's the fun.
That is the fun, I think.
You know, absolutely. Yeah. And there is no right, I think, is quite a useful thing to have.
I sometimes think it's like playing a game of chess where you throw all the men in the air and then you still play your game of chess because it's all like it's all happening.
Well, it's three-dimensional chess, isn't it?
Just like that.
Yeah, it is.
And you've got to pick up all these unseen patterns and assemble them all together and make a coherent kind of message out of it. Oh. Well, that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Sarah, for all that information.
That's all right.
And sharing it. I mean, it's really fascinating to do that. Oh, actually, one thing I must ask you about as well is auditioning on the second flute chair. I'm really interested in that because there's a lot of talk about like, I better play like this for this orchestra.
No, I don't know.
And then it's like, well, how solo? I've got to play solo lines. I've got to play these second flute parts as solo lines.
Yeah.
And what recommendation would you have?
The answer to that is it's always puzzled me. I've never been quite sure how to do that. I think the best auditions for second flute are when the first flute will come and play with you.
Yes.
And so you can, and as from a first flute's point of view, you can tell immediately if someone has that instinct.
Yeah.
But I think you can't second guess. It's like going to play. You've possibly got the rest of your life with this orchestra. You're not going to go and have compromised in the audition and then spend the rest of your life having compromised with who you are as a musician. Yeah. So I think you need to trust that when you go to do the audition, you play. It's you that's there.
Yeah.
You play as you. Hopefully, you've got an opportunity to play some duets with the person.
Yes. Yeah.
I think you could show that you understand. So, say if we take Mother Goose, you could show that you understand that it's definitely by dynamic that it is a pianissimo solo, not a solo.
Yeah.
Although it is sort of solo pianissimo, so that is.
No, but that says it perfectly, I think.
Yeah.
Exactly that. It's both pianissimo and a solo.
Yeah. So it's showing. I think it's showing that you understand context, but in terms of sound, some people say, "Oh, go and listen to all the records of the orchestra, and you know how that orchestra should be." Well, I suppose if you take it to its extreme, it would be, say, using valve horns and proper horns and natural horns and all of that. How much do you change that sound or that quality? I don't know. I think play your own game and hope that that will fit in with the orchestra that wants to employ you, possibly.
Yes. I suppose, would you say that a general thing would be not to play too extravagantly, as it were? But play really expressively.
Do a bit of yourself.
Exactly.
Play your concerto. That's your concerto. You're playing a concerto.
Absolutely, as you would.
That's you. And
Full
then
stop.
And then when you come to excerpts, you just need to know that you're flexible. You need to show that you're flexible. You can, if you think it's something that they might play with no vibrato, play with no vibrato. If it's something, I mean, if it's Bach or something like that, play it with no vibrato. Show them that you can do that, or very little. It's about showing. I think it's about showing your adaptability, perhaps, more than anything, and that your willingness to have a lot of perspective in how you play.
Yeah.
But actually, the best thing is for the first to play with you, and then you can really show it. Then.
Yeah.
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 And the most important thing is that you want to do it. I think that's massive. I think that you really appreciate what a fun job it can actually be, and to really enjoy that.
I'm sure. I think that probably communicates itself, doesn't it? Even in an audition situation.
I think so. I mean, you don't have to come in and go, "Yeah, I love playing second." Yeah. but just in your music making, that you're interested and fascinated by it somehow.
Yeah. I think that must be a moot point, actually, because A, to be able to show stylistic sensibility between things, but also to be able to show flexibility. Because I'd say, sitting my side of the fence, or somebody auditioning, that would be like big ticks.
Yeah.
That somebody gets style but also that they show that they are
Their flexibility.
flexible.
Yeah, because that means that it really means that they are going to be able to adapt if they're asked to do it.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But then comes the decision making thing, and I don't know how you quite. I suppose that's why trials are good.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how do you know if someone is happy with that for a lifetime?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Playing second flute, do you think does it ever feel like you're a bit could have more acknowledgement? You know,
of course,
I think
my inner diva is permanently being told I'm marvellous.
But just generally for like
in general, cake will do.
Cake will do.
No,
do you think that's a problem for second flutes generally, or depends on personality? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose it's really. I mean, it's very nice if at the end of, say, a Brahms symphony, the wind section is brought up, so all the seconds are acknowledged for their importance.
Yeah.
Because in a Brahms symphony, probably the most favourite things to play on second, it is a real. It's lovely when that's acknowledged.
Yes.
You know, and the flute player the first flute might have had one solo, and you think, well, yeah, it was fabulous, but you know, and I think that is a fair do, and I think that comes across the whole wind section. Though I think everybody, you know, all the pairs in that it's nice when it's acknowledged, but I don't know really. I mean, I suppose the best acknowledgement is that you're booked again.
Yes.
Actually, you know, that you're earning. Because actually it does come down to that. I mean, it comes down to, you know, you won't be booked if you don't do a decent job. And that, I mean, yeah, I did. And I must admit that when I played first, not so long ago, I had someone come in and play second to me. And I will never book them again. Right. I didn't book them anyway, but I will never book them again because they basically tried to outplay me and blast me off the seat.
Right. Yeah.
And I just thought, all these years, I've done my very, very best to do this job well and to enjoy this job. And for some, it was a young player to come in and do that. To me, I just thought, Nat, you need to pay me some respect in this. This is my decision-making day, and you need to do that. And I just thought it was quite interesting at the time. I thought, interesting. Because I do like the swap in the two jobs. I enjoy that. I enjoy the different mentality. But I think, so my ego-minded
there's another
that
instinctive thing I was wondering about is that I love about second players that you just feel that you're so much in it together and that you're basically making music together, you know, that bouncing off each other.
That is what you're doing.
And that there's a sort of smile on one's face as you're working with your colleague because it's just like so much fun. Yeah. And they're picking up and you're doing stuff and hey, that was cool.
Sometimes too much fun.
Phrasing. And I just wondered what's really intriguing is because that can go wrong in either direction because sometimes you just don't pick up that sort of in it together joy from a second player. But alternatively sometimes they can just be that little bit too strong and it just sort of crushes your toes a bit. And it means that you have to sort of start adapting your playing to the second's playing. I wonder what is that game of trying to get that balance right? So it's probably not very conscious, or is it?
Well, I think, that particular day I could have adapted, but I decided not to.
But in terms of you sitting second.
Oh, absolutely, I'd have done it. I'd have changed. You just do it. That's the job.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no contest there. It's not about being stronger or weaker.
So
you bring out the bits.
You're basically judging the level that the principal is playing of communication and expression, all these kind of things. Yeah. And then you're just sort of like evaluating that, sort of sizing it up, measuring it.
A while ago, a student of mine got offered a second job, and I did a little test on this person because they were a bit worried about it, and I said, okay, let's play some duets. So I played some duets with them, and I played basically I played dynamics that were inappropriate. And so we played away, and I said at the end, I could feel the discomfort. I could feel it was tangible. And I said at the end, okay, how was that? And they looked at me, and I said, well, really, how was that?
Yeah.
Well, you didn't play forte there. I said, well, it was my forte, and I'm the first flute. And they said, ah. And I said, so you need to go away and really think about this. If that frustrated you, I said, I could feel your frustration, then that job is not for you.
Yeah, right. And
they didn't take it.
Right.
And they were right not to take it.
Yeah.
And they'd done extremely well afterwards.
Okay.
So,
cool.
On a job that's much more suitable for them.
Yeah.
But it is really interesting because it was a moment, you know, I just played a game with them, but you know, because you have to understand what that is about. Yeah. That feeling.
Yes.
And yeah.
Yeah. So it's a sort of personality type thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you can have.
You'd sort of hope that anybody could do it.
I think anyone can do it. It's just a case of wanting to do it.
Yeah.
So it's basically being intrigued by it. The game. It's a game to me. I enjoy guessing what's going to happen or feeling. It's not guessing. It's feeling. And I enjoy that spontaneity, and I like being pushed.
Yeah.
So I like being pushed a lot. You know, I learn from it, and that's fun.
Ah,
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, that's so cool to hear. And well, it's just nice for me to be part of the game we share together. And Sarah, huge thank you for sharing all that with us. It's amazing stuff.
That's a pleasure.
Brilliant.
Well, it's also the best fun to play second with you. So there we go.
We're all happy.
We're all happy. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.